Drew Ratichek, head MMA coach at American Combative Systems. This is my assistant coach, Gary Norbrotten. We're going to cover a couple of MMA mistakes that amateurs make, or entry-level amateurs sometimes make, and how to avoid them. First one we want to look at is the mount. The mount is a very high-level position, in my opinion. The mount is a dynamic position. There's no one way to simply hold it. If you watch the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu players in the world, they're dynamic. They're shifting to control their opponent. And one of the mistakes that we see is we see a kid with 6 months training go to mount. And what happens when he goes to mount? Well, let's take a look at this. Here we are in side control. We're doing well. We're winning our first amateur fight. And all of a sudden we feel the need to go to mount because we've seen guys do it on the UFC videos. So here we go. We go to mount very unceremoniously, jumping into mount, but somehow we get there. And of course, I see this more than 50% of the time somebody goes to mount in an amateur fight. Next thing that happens, he's throwing punches, and you end up on the bottom. Now you're taking punches like a jerk, just like this. Terrible situation. Went from being on top, from winning the fight, now you're on the bottom taking punches like a jerk, eating fists in your face. It's not fun. We don't want to do it. If you haven't developed a high-level mount that you know you can hold, in mixed martial arts, staying on top is so important. If you have not developed a high-level mount that you know you can hold, let's stay out of mount unless your opponent is exhausted. When they're exhausted, it's a great pressure position. When they're fresh, the first round, probably not a good idea unless you're in the last 10 seconds if you don't have a good, solid Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fundamentals base. When I start here in side control, I'd rather see brand new fighters stay in side control. It's much harder to reverse the person out of, and you can keep a great pressure game on them. When we're in this position, I like to look at 4 attacks. We're going to attack the body with ground and pound, and we're going to attack it like we're moving around a clock. So when we start right here, I'm always going to work from the body up to the head, opposite side of the head, back to the body. This is one option for how you can look at your ground and pound and make it intentional and make it progressive. We start right here. The first thing that I want to do is use knees to the body. If you're in an amateur event where that's allowed, we start right here with knees to the body, but instead of pumping knees like this across the body, the risk of my body crossing his is that I could be reversed. I would rather the knees come up and drop down into the ribs, up and drop down into the ribs, just like this. After we do that, it's going to create a sense of urgency to block that spot. As he brings this arm down to block those knees, it opens up the ground and pound to the head. Oftentimes he will use the other hand to block that side of the head, as this one is trapped blocking the knees, opening up the opposite side of the head on this side for hammer fists, or in the pros for elbows, and so on and so forth. As the hand comes back over to this side to tie up my arm, it opens up elbows to the body, hammer fists to the body, and my all-time favorite, straight shots down into the body right here, right into the breadbasket. So to review, as one option, instead of going to mount where you might get reversed, some of you young fighters might have experienced this, let's look at staying in side control, doing a lot of damage. We'll do it from the other side. Come this way a little bit. Trap the arm. Nice tight side control. I start with knees over here. I want my knee coming up in the air and down into the body. Up in the air, down into the body. You only need to land a couple of these if you land them clean. The urgency to block that space will be there. This arm comes down to block those knees, and immediately I have clean shots here to the side of the head. If I have his arm trapped like this, he's going to use his other arm to block this side of the head. And when he does, when he starts blocking on this side, I simply come over, start hammer fists on the far side, elbows on the far side. And then as he comes back to block this side of the head, it opens up the body right here. We're elbowing, we're hammer fisting. I'm cupping his elbow in this position. My knees are in close to his body. And my all-time favorite to finish with, straight shots, straight down. These are devastating when you're fighting somebody who's already exhausted and breathing hard. Something that's overlooked a lot. With 4-ounce gloves, it's very easy to land very hard shots to the body that are debilitating.